background information about the artist, why he did what he did, and all of this stuff. This one's a lot of fun because it's basically about posters. And Henri Marie Raymond de Toulouse-Lautrec Monfort, really long name, very short man. They called him the Little Gentleman. He was very, very polite. He was a very kind-hearted, very sweet person. And he drew caricatures. That's what he really liked to do, with very few lines. And so if you're intimidated about drawing or thinking, oh, this is a big drawing one, it is a drawing one, but it's also a caricature. So they can come out as funny looking as possible and they're still going to be absolutely right. In fact, he had a lot of critics criticizing the mouth of one of his performers. And these performers were really not good. They were really short on talent, very short on good looks. And their whole thing was just performing. And that was in Paris in the cafe concert days and back in the 1800s. They didn't really have electric lights. They were just kind of new. So if they had electric lights at one of these places, they would advertise that and try to get people to come see the electric lights, and are great performers. And the performers, they had weird gimmicks. One of them, like this lady, May Belfort, she would come out on stage carrying a little tiny kitten, and she had one song that she sang about her, that she wanted a dog, but her dad had gotten her a cat. And she sang in this little baby girl's voice that was really horrible. She wore a big bonnet and a nightgown, and that was her whole big gimmick. She would just come out and sing her one little song with her high little pitched, squeaky little voice. And I've heard a recording of her. It's a bad recording anyway, but she sounds terrible. And people flocked to the theater to see her just because she was just amusing, and she was kind of funny looking. So that's May. And she became a good friend of Toulouse-Lautrec's also. He liked the funny people that were the performers of the circus, his like all the cafe concert dance hall people, because they were all a little bit off, a little bit strange. He was kind of the same way. He had some health problems. We'll get into that in a minute. But he was a brilliant advertising poster maker. And in those days, that's what they had to do to advertise. So he made friends with these performers. He loved to draw, and he would just draw their faces. Well, pretty soon they thought, I want a poster to advertise my dancing at this new theater. So he would make posters for all of his friends. And most of these people would never have been remembered if it weren't for Toulouse-Lautrec. But now they're infamous, they've gone down in history just because he made them well known for their one little song or their one little act. One season, one woman did. She was just there for one season, and then she left to go back to New York. She was an American, and nobody ever heard from her again. So that was another one. Now these are some samples that were actually from different advertising magazine cover advertisements, posters that he did for his friends. The only guy, this guy, Aristide Bruant, he actually had a pretty good voice, and he was a singer, but his whole claim to fame was he would insult you. And he owned a restaurant, so he would be the performer, but people would come to the restaurant to be insulted by him. That was just so funny. They would laugh. That was just hysterical. And he would say, like, you shouldn't be in here tonight because you've eaten too much, your buttons are popping. He would give them some insult from the stage, and they thought, oh, he's singling me out. So everybody loved to go to his restaurant. He was so popular, actually, from Toulouse-Lautrec's posters, he was able to retire at about 40 years old. He went and bought himself a home in the country and retired, and that's where he stayed. And when Lautrec got really, really sick, because he died a few months before his 37th birthday, when he got very ill and needed to recuperate, he went out and stayed with Aristide Bruant at his country home, and he kind of nursed him back to health a couple of times. So they were good friends, and because of his posters, and because he was a sweet person that listened and had problems himself. Now, there's 3 different sizes of paper. Don't feel that you're contained to that. You don't have to stick with that one. The little guys have the smallest because it's kind of hard for their little hands to be drawing a whole big bunch of stuff. We used to do this size for everybody, this poster size, because basically it is a poster we're making. We make it big with the background. So what they're going to do is we're going to go through the little kid steps. This will be kindergarten through, say, 2nd grade, and we'll do a little guided drawing. It's very, very simple.